Step one in training camp, putting the pads on. Now, it wasn't live hitting, but I believe the word they used was thud. Oh, step one. Step one. I'll tell you why this feels nice and this feels refreshing. Middle of June. What were we talking about? Sixers. What's going to happen with the Sixers in free agency? What happened to the Sixers against the Raptors? You also had the Philadelphia Phillies playing baseball. I know they piss us off, but there was conversation about the Phillies, meaningful conversation. We didn't have to reach. We didn't. We weren't reaching for Eagles conversation. We weren't reaching for football conversation, talking about Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, the cornerback room, what's happening with the running backs. No. We didn't have to go out of our way to try and make conversation there about the Eagles that wasn't really there. And now we're in a perfect spot where it falls on our lap, and it's refreshing. I love it. I love it. This is perfect. Let's talk about what happened today in this practice. Now, I love following all of the Eagles insiders and being on Twitter, scrolling. I'm like a little kid with candy looking to see what's happening because you know all those reporters are on the sideline trying to tweet out what happened first. I love it. I love following what's going on. It's outstanding. I believe today the biggest takeaway from practice was Carson Wentz. Now, we're going to hit on some little topics and, just pretty much what happened and some storylines out of practice. Big ones, small ones. I believe the biggest one of the day, though, was Carson Wentz. And he didn't have a great practice today. A couple balls that he left long, which is going to happen with this part of the season, right? You obviously work with your receivers. This is where you find ways to gel. This is where you find what your receivers like, especially when Deshaun Jackson comes here. Well, Carson Wentz and Deshaun Jackson never really played together, so this is where you find that rhythm and connection between the two, but he was missing some passes. He also threw an interception to Grugier-Hill, who started running it back, and apparently Carson Wentz was trying to go after him and tackle him as a little joke, and Grugier-Hill was going to stiff arm him, but he realized, oh, whoa, it's Carson. I don't know if I want to put him on his ass or not. Smart decision there, Grugier-Hill. So Carson Wentz went 14 of 21 with an interception. So not the best performance out of him today in practice. There's no reason to get all scared about it, all right? It's pretty obvious there's some rust there. That's standard. That's normal for any quarterback when it's late July. But one thing that stood out to me is after practice, he gathered around with receivers, with offensive guys, and he worked. He worked. He wanted to find the way to get it done. He wanted to execute. It bothered him how practice went for him. So he decided after practice to stick around and say, all right, let's make it better. Let's find a way to make sure we're on the same page. Let's execute. He has that type of mentality where he was unhappy with himself and how it went down. He was going to fix it. He was going to put in the effort to find a way to make it all work, to find a way to get on the same page. I love that. Now, let's be real. No one's questioning the love of the game for Carson Wentz, right? We all know Carson Wentz loves the game. He's studying film every day. He's obsessed with the game, which is fantastic. But this defines that. This shows that. This proves that. And I love to see that as a fan. And it's a leader really setting the tone. It is. Everyone knows the quarterback is the leader of the football team. Well, it's a lot different if you have a bad practice, you put your head down, you go back into your stall, you have bad body language, and you're upset with yourself. Or you can go out there and say, yo, come on, number ones, let's go. Let's work on it. Let's work on it. I wasn't hitting my long ball. Let's hit our long ball. Now, apparently he did have a really good throw. His best throw of the day was to Dallas Goedert, around 25-yard pass, and that was a beauty. There were some nice passes in there. I'm not trying to make it seem like he was just absolutely horrendous today. Like I said, 14 of 21. But he wasn't the smoothest. He wasn't the sharpest. And we'll see how he bounces back in next practice. They are off tomorrow on Sunday, and they come back on Monday, I believe, for 4 days in a row. So After the Carson Wentz news, the second biggest news of the day is Cre'Von Leblanc, and he's in a boot. He's in a boot, so it doesn't look good. Now, it doesn't seem like it's to the point where it's season ending or anything to the extreme, but it looks like the Eagles are bringing in some other guys, some other DBs to kind of test out what else is around. Maybe that's telling. Maybe it is a little bit worse than maybe missing a week or two, but it's not to the point of an extreme and he's going to be missing all of the season. But it does suck because he's someone who earned his spot and earned respect. I wouldn't go as far as earning a spot, but he earned respect and a chance to gain a spot with everything that happened last year, and he could be a very solid role player, and sadly he is in a boot, and it doesn't look fantastic. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world either. Just a tough way to start training camp for someone who's really trying to show that he can compete and he can really be some sort of role player in this Eagles defense. Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones today apparently had some really good coverage on receivers. He stayed with receivers. He was in good position, and he also had an interception. Now, this interception came against Nate Sudfeld, though, so it's a little bit less valued, in my opinion. And obviously, I've been on the record not being the biggest Sidney Jones fan, and I hope he proves me wrong so bad. I really do. I hope he proves me so wrong. But apparently today he looked all right. He looked all right. He was staying with people. He was contending. He was being a little bit physical there. And that's what I like to hear, realistically, because he was the second-round pick that was first-round talent, but he was injured, and we're going to need him to play at a high level this year. This is his season. This is Sidney Jones' season to show this organization and this fan base that it wasn't a mistake to pick him where we picked him, all right? We didn't waste no second-round draft pick. That's got to be his mentality. He needs to prove it to us and come out at an elite level at the cornerback position. A ton of 12 personnel sets when it comes to this Eagles offense. That's telling. We've been hearing that for a couple days now. Even though this is the first day with pads, we've seen the 12 personnel throughout the first couple days here of training camp. They're going to rock and roll with that heavy this year. It's going to be a big-time game plan with this team. The offense is going to thrive with 12 personnel. And that makes sense, though, because they have that type of roster, right? They have the players to make that work. And I love that. It's going to be tough to stop. It's going to be brutal from a defender's perspective because there's so many damn weapons involved in this offense. So you have seen a lot of that so far, which is cool. Josh Sweat versus Andre Dillard. This is funny. This is funny because Dillard had him today. He had his number today. Shut him down, back-to-back plays, had him. Good. I love that. Now, apparently throughout, Josh Sweat has been more productive, but today, Dillard seemed to be on top of his game. Now, you can look at that one or two ways. That's great for Dillard, right? But if Josh Sweat is going to be as good as what people think he's going to be, because apparently this is Josh Sweat's breakout season, he even talked about it to the media, saying, I was coming for Chris Long's spot and Michael Bennett's spot, and Chris Long put something back up on Twitter cracking up, saying something like, oh, you wanted my 9 snaps per game with the cracking up emojis? Because we all know Chris Long retired because he was not the happiest with the role he would have had here in Philadelphia at his age. So it's just funny that that's how it all played out. But you can look at it as Andre Dillard was fantastic, or Josh Sweat wasn't able to beat Dillard, and he's supposed to be this guy that should be effective this year. I understand. It's training camp. I'm not blowing this out of proportion. A lot of people are still obviously getting back into the rhythm of things and getting a feel, going out there, competing. There's a long time to the first game, of course, but I'm just saying that was obviously a matchup today that was noticeable, and it seemed like Dillard got the answer today. He won the battle today, but overall, Josh Sweat has been working him and winning the battle totally overall. Vinny Curry. Let's talk about the hits, because there were a couple hits today. Vinny Curry with a nice hit on Miles Sanders, a little bit of an emotional leader out there today, apparently, bringing the oomph, right? Bringing the swagger, bringing that cool, fun personality to practice, and he ended up hitting Miles Sanders there in the backfield and brought some spark to the team. This one was interesting. Singleton apparently had a monster hit on a running back. Now, I saw two different reports. One report said it was Josh Adams, and the other one said it was Scott. But there was also reports that Scott went back into the tunnel and back into the training facility because he was a little banged up. He ended up coming back, so it makes more sense that it was Scott, and I believe I saw two reports saying Scott, one Adams. But regardless, the big thing was the big hit. And apparently it was one of those hits where everyone was like, yo, it's not live hitting. It's not live hitting. So it might have been to the extreme, but when you're someone like Singleton trying to make your name and be noticeable, listen, anything goes, right? Just be respectful. Well, he blew up one of the running backs there out of the backfield. So, I could just put it in perspective of being that running back, not expecting to get hit live and getting popped, Oh, man. But listen, you're competing for a job, right? If you're a coach, if you're from a coaching standpoint, do you say, this dude's going for it, man. This kid's trying to show us something, or you say, yo, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? So it just depends on the coaching staff, to be honest. And Sendejo had a really nice collision as well. A good pop sound from the shoulder pads, which nothing's better than that as a football fan. That's the best noise you can possibly hear. A nice crack, a nice pop. Sort of like Malcolm Jenkins to Brandon Cooks in the Super Bowl. Let's go. So with that being said, that's how today went down for Eagles training camp. It's great. It's great that it's back. I love reading up on what's going down in practice. There are some fans that say, well, practice is stupid. Just wait until September when it matters. Well, of course, I'm not trying to tell you that the training camp and practice stuff is better than the games. No, of course it's not. But it's something right now. We're in the late July month here, and the Phillies stink, and the Sixers are died out with conversation. No one cares about the Flyers. The Eagles are in training camp, so it gives me something, all right? I'm not comparing it to what's going to happen in September, early September, but it's something. It's conversation. It's seeing the guys out there. They're putting shoulder pads on. Come on now. Come on. Don't be one of those guys that think training camp isn't entertaining. There's some value in it. It brings football back to life. It brings conversations up. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.